Ladies and gentlemen, I want to have a discussion today about the Western Conference and if this is the greatest conference in NBA history. This iteration of the Western Conference, if this is the greatest conference in NBA history. Now you might be asking, BSOLZ, why? What makes you say that? What makes you say that? Well, let's look at the standings, shall we? All right, here's the Western Conference right now. You got the Minnesota Timberwolves, you got the Oklahoma City Thunder, Denver Nuggets, LA Clippers, New Orleans Pelicans, Phoenix Suns, Sacramento Kings, Dallas Mavericks, Los Angeles Lakers, and the Golden State Warriors as the 10 teams that are effectively locked to be in the play-in tournament, right? You got some really, really good teams. You got some really, really proven teams. You got some arguable super teams, depending on what you define as a super team in this conference. And I think it's also too important that there are a couple teams outside of the play-in tournament that are having down years for one reason or another. The Houston Rockets showed a lot of promise earlier on in the season, but they began to slump. But in my opinion, they got something that I like. I like the idea of having all these young players who have, a lot of potential, continue to develop that, and bringing in veterans that aren't necessarily superstars that are trying to win now, but veterans that can help you win games and develop some sort of winning culture with your team. Them bringing in Dylan Brooks and Fred VanVleet, I think those were great signings for the Houston Rockets. Sengun has separated himself from that young crowd. In my opinion, he is the piece to build around for the Houston Rockets. Sir Thompson has showed promise. Jalen Green might be the odd man out. I ain't gonna lie. How many years does Jalen Green have left? I know he's in his third year, but is Jalen Green properly improving? I don't know. I know a lot of Houston Rockets fans do not like Jalen Green. But nevertheless, this is a down year for a team that still has promise. The Memphis Grizzlies. We know why they're cheeks. We know why they're cheeks. And it's because John Morant missed a majority of the season, and then he suffered an injury that has effectively sidelined him for the rest of the season. But even in that small glimpse where John Morant did play this season, they look phenomenal. they look phenomenal. I would love to see what this team looks like next year when Steven Adams is healthy, when Desmond Bane is back, when Jaren Jackson is back, when Marcus Smart is properly integrated to the team. With John Morant coming back, I would love to see this team next season. And then the San Antonio Spurs, right? While they do have the third worst record in the league, we know what's coming in San Antonio, what San Antonio is capable of, depending on some of the some moves that they can make in the offseason. Particularly a move like Trae Young. I don't know, but nevertheless, even if they don't get Trae Young, this is an up-and-coming team that has a lot of potential to make a lot of noise and be a contender in the Western Conference in the next couple of years, depending on certain moves that they make. So the San Antonio Spurs. Before we move on with the rest of the video, I just want to shout out the sponsors of this video, Prize Picks, my personal favorite way to play daily fantasy sports, and I think it should be yours as well. And the game is very simple. All you got to do is go on their website and sign up for an account. They also got an app that you can download. And they got a bunch of different stats on the board. They got a popular tab now for popular picks. And all you got to do is pick X amount of players. If they get more or less in the stat line that's on the board and you predict correctly, you will win some money. So let's do an entry right now. Giannis versus the Warriors. Is he going to get a three-pointer? I think he's not. You got De'Aaron Fox going up against the Lakers last night. Can he get more than 32.5 points and assists? I personally think he can, so I'm going to pick the more on that and less on the Giannis pick. And that is how you place an entry on prizepicks.com. And thanks to our friends over at PrizePicks, you guys can use code SLZ to get a $100 match on your first deposit. So if you put in $50, they'll give you $50. Now you got $100 to work with, all the way up to $100. Links will be in the description for that. And shout out to PrizePicks for sponsoring this video. And I'm also looking at these teams in the playoffs, like well in the playoffs, in the playoff race. The Minnesota Timberwolves are a relatively young team, right? They got some guys that can regress. But for the next couple of years, I don't see Rudy Gobert regressing like crazy. I don't see a guy like Jaden McDaniels regressing like crazy. Karl Anthony Towns, in my opinion, is going to play roughly around the same level. And Anthony Edwards is a guy that, in my opinion, is a person that can only ascend from here. Can only ascend from here and take certain leaps that will push them into different conversations. So the Minnesota Timberwolves, already on pace to win 60 to 58 games, is a team that still has a bright future for the next couple of years. The Oklahoma City Thunder, again, another team on pace to win 58 to 60 games. One of the youngest teams in the league, ahead of schedule like crazy. And we're already having conversations about this team being a championship contender, a possible championship winner this year, right? Another team with a bright future. If anything, they have too many young stars. That's the conversation with the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Denver Nuggets, the defending champions, right? Still playing at that level throughout the season. I personally expect them to make a little bit of a drop this season after losing Bruce Brown, but they may have lost half a step, but they are still one of the best teams in the league, and a lot of people are arguing is the only team, well, Milwaukee's starting to heat up, but is the only team that could beat a team like the Boston Celtics, right? The Denver Nuggets are still the Denver Nuggets, and Jokic is, let's look at Jokic. Jokic is 28 years old, 29 years old. He just turned 29. And in my opinion, he still has 4, 5, 6 years left of him playing at this level, right? We got the LA Clippers, a team that's built to win now, a team that's playing phenomenal right now. The New Orleans Pelicans. I think the New Orleans Pelicans is a team that is good right now, but I think they're starting to, be a little bit cautious about what the future of this team actually is. Do we double down on this core with Brandon Ingram and Zion, or do we just face the fact that Zion is not him and maybe, try to move on? But, if things work out for Zion specifically, because I think Zion is the X factor for this team, this is another team who can continue to improve and make noise in the Western Conference for upcoming years and could have a bright future, again, depending on how Zion develops. The Sacramento Kings. Did y'all remember the conversations about the Sacramento Kings last season? How Draymond Green was talking about how, this might be, the next Golden State Warriors. We see a lot of ourselves in them. And while, yes, standing-wise, they aren't the 3 seed that they were last year, I think that's how it worked out, right? Were they the 3 seed? They weren't the 3 seed that they were last year, and you can make a case that they are having a down season compared to last year when a lot of people expected them to progress. But I truly think the main reason that they've regressed this season is not necessarily because they became a worse team. It's just a lot of teams in the Western Conference improved. You face teams in your conference more often than not. Therefore, on a night in, night out basis, you're facing a good team in the Western Conference, right? So the Sacramento Kings, another team with a bright future. De'Aaron Fox is, 26? I know he was in Jason Tatum's class, so De'Aaron Fox is 26, just turned 26. Sabonis is 27, right? Keegan Murray is a guy a lot of Sacramento Kings fans are still high on. Keegan Murray is 23 years old. Even a guy like Malik Monk is 25 years old. Kevin Huerter is 25 years old, right? This is a team that's poised to, if they keep this core together, is poised to be a regular in the Western Conference. Dallas Mavericks. Luka is still under 25, right? They made some moves this season. They got PJ Washington. They got Daniel Gafford. Kyrie Irving is still Kyrie Irving. Let me check Kyrie's age. Kyrie is 31, 32. Damn, he's becoming old, but in my opinion, he's still got a couple years left in him of really good basketball, right? So you're looking at a lot of these teams who are already really good in the Western Conference, and I'm thinking these are going to be staples in the Western Conference for the next 4 to 5 years, and I don't really see anything drastic happening to change that, right? At the same time, you still got these teams who are trying to win right now, who may be on the older side, but are still really good teams that contribute to this argument that the Western Conference, this might be the greatest Western Conference ever, right? You got the Golden State Warriors with Steph Curry, with Clay, with Draymond, with Kuminga, with all these dudes. Andrew Wiggins is poised to come back. They are the 10th seed. The Los Angeles Lakers, every single season, they've proven to be the biggest wild card, it feels like, right? They're either, they can turn it up. They can turn on a switch in the playoffs that not a lot of teams can because of the fact that they have LeBron James and Anthony Davis. I mean, we saw what they were capable of last season, and I'm going to keep it a stack. They're starting to heat up in the second half of this season, right? The Phoenix Suns, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, they didn't have much help last season in the playoffs, but just because they had those two, boy, there was, listen, I understand the Denver Nuggets ended up winning at the end of the day, but that was probably the toughest series Denver had to go through in hindsight. And now they got Bradley Beal. They are a better team than they were last season. They just got to get healthy, right? And the Dallas Mavericks, again, this is Luka. Luka, the Clippers. I think it was last week we was talking about, this team might be the best team in the Western Conference. With Kawhi, Paul George, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, and the deep squad that they got, bro. And I'm just looking at this Western Conference, and right now, I don't know a period in time within the Western Conference where I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams that I can see in the NBA Finals. Just I can see it. I can see them making the finals if this matchup turns to this matchup. If certain players heat up, like, I can see these guys in the finals from a talent perspective, how they're playing throughout the regular season. I can see these guys in the finals. And even the Warriors. I didn't even include the Warriors there, but boy, Steph Curry. And that team is still, there's still championship DNA on that team. In terms of how certain teams can improve in the next couple of years, right? Like, I would love to see what this conference looks like 2 years from now. Assuming LeBron and AD are still there, maybe the Warriors make some moves. When the Timberwolves, when the Thunder, when the Nuggets, when the Kings, when the Mavs, when the Rockets, when the Spurs are getting better because these are younger teams, getting better, while the Phoenix Suns, while the Los Angeles Lakers, and while the Warriors, while old teams are still, competitive teams in this Western Conference. Like, this is a conference that can only get better, and it's already crazy here on out. But chat, just let me know if there's ever been a conference stronger than what the Western Conference is right now. The conference that I'm thinking of is maybe the 2008 Western Conference, 2009 Western Conference. I understand some of these Western Conferences were crazy, just looking back. To be an 8 seed, you had to be a 50-win team back then. The 9 seed was a 48-win team, right? But I'm talking about real championship contenders. Well, not necessarily real championship contenders, but the amount of teams going into the playoffs with just real championship aspirations. Not on some, we're just a playoff team, and we're probably gonna get bounced out, but we're just, I don't know. It's kind of hard to say, but I don't know, bro. Chat, just let me know. I ain't gonna lie, just let me know. 2008 Western Conference had the Lakers, the Hornets, the Spurs, the Suns, the Jazz, the Mavs, the Rockets had T-Mac and Yao Ming, I believe, this year. I just don't see a lot of pretenders in the Western Conference. Right? I don't know, because I don't want to sit up here and say like the Jazz or the Rockets weren't championship contenders, but in hindsight, like, these guys were pretenders, in my opinion. I'm looking at this Western Conference, and I don't think there's a lot of pretenders. I think there's some teams that if they match up with the wrong team, they will just flat out lose. You know, it's not on some, they were pretenders, they weren't built for it. No, it's just, bro, they faced a team that they're relatively on the same level of, and they just got outplayed by that team. Yeah, I'm looking at this 2008 Western Conference as competition to this current conference that we're seeing right now. I know those early 2000s Western Conference conferences as well were really, really good, with the Kings, with the Spurs, with the Lakers, the Mavs, the Timberwolves were in that discussion, the Trailblazers were in that discussion. So, you know, if we move down a little bit to 2000 to 2001, you know, a lot of really dominant teams in their peak. And again, you still needed to be a 45 to 47 win team to be a 8 or 9 seed in this conference, right? And that's still the case to this day. But I think it's very, very telling when the experienced teams are at the bottom and the young teams are at the top, as to how talented this conference is. Let alone, like, we're not even talking about era differences, and if you want to make the argument that today's era is just flat out more talented than last year's era. But I don't know, bro. I mean, some people like to make the argument about the 90s East. I'm going to be honest with you, the last time the 90s was truly the greater conference, like truly the greater conference, maybe a couple of these 90s years, yeah, the East. I think the 90s was probably when the conferences were the most even. But maybe in the 80s, probably in the 80s. But even in the 80s, like, the East was just very top heavy. I don't know why I just looked up 1980s like something was going to pop up, but the East was just very top heavy. And the championship contenders, a lot of them came from the East. And the West was just the Lakers versus whoever, you know. But even, you know, those Eastern conferences, I would still argue that today's Western Conference is better than those conferences because of how deep it is and how many, like, even the top heavy teams in the league, like, a lot of those teams, like, when we talk about the real championship contenders, it's really the Celtics in the East, the Bucks in the East, and then you just list off a bunch of West teams that got the capability of making it out the West and possibly beating a Milwaukee Bucks or a Boston Celtics if they actually get to the finals. And that's a lot of teams in the West. That's a lot of teams in the West. But yeah, let me know what y'all think. Is this the greatest Western Conference of all time? I would like to bet that it is, in my opinion. Those late 2010s West would give it a run for its money, looking back at it. Those early 2000s Western conferences would also give it a run for its money. But I've just never seen a conference this deep in talent with the trajectory to become better. Like, what you're looking at right now may just be the beginning, right? May just be the beginning. But let me know what y'all think in the comment section down below. And I'm out, man. Peace.